started. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening or maybe morning, depending on where you are. My name is Erin and I'm the Student Recruitment Officer for UBC Engineering. So my role is really to support students coming into our engineering program. I work with students all the way from just starting their applications and applying into engineering all the way to helping you guys get into the program and get registered in your courses and all those things. So we're so close now. We're a few weeks out from the start of school, so it's a really exciting time for all of you coming in. So this year is obviously, we know, going to be a little bit different. First term is going to be online. That's new for most of our students. So we just wanted to take some time to talk today a little bit about how to make some meaningful connections. And this is something that we do always talk about at our incoming orientations like Jumpstart and Imagine Day. We do always recommend making friends because they'll support you throughout your whole year, throughout potentially your whole degree. There's a lot of studies out there actually that show that students that make friends in the first few weeks of classes actually are more successful in their classes as well. So we really want to help you and support you in doing that. This year is a little bit different because those connections will have to be made online. But that's where we're going to talk a little bit about today. And I think really our incoming class has already done a lot of amazing things. So I think you guys will be just fine, but we just want to talk about that a little bit. So I have Christian with me today. They are the VP Spirit for EUS, and I'll let Christian introduce himself.
Hey guys, so my name's Christian. I'm the VP Spirit at the EUS, as you heard. I'm also a third-year student going into geological engineering. And yeah, I'm really excited to hear from you guys. The VP Spirit is in charge of a bunch of things. One of those is all of the first-year orientation stuff. So I'm really excited for you guys, and we're doing our best to make sure that this year still has a lot of events and a lot of good things for you guys to make friends and stuff.
Perfect. And so that's kind of a little bit about your role within the EUS already, Christian. Do you want to describe maybe a little bit about what some of those events that you are planning are?
Sure. So what we do every year for the first couple weeks of school is this thing called Wiki Not, which is like eat not, that's one, engineering jokes. We're very funny, as you can tell. And the point of it is it's a bunch of orientation events about all kinds of things. And the idea is just to get you guys talking to each other, to kind of make friends. Obviously, it's going to be a bit different than usual, but we're still going to be doing events online. We're going to have game nights. We're going to have an event about the history of the EUS. There will be a schedule coming out soon, but there should be, for the first 2 weeks, there should be at least one event a day. We're hoping to do some kind of scavenger hunt. We're hoping to do some Netflix parties, course breakdowns, Q&As with the executives. Hopefully fun with science where we get to blow things up in a park somewhere, all that kind of fun stuff. So yeah, Wiki Not's a really good time. I'd highly recommend coming out to the events. Come out to the ones that you're most interested in, and hopefully you'll meet people and have a good time.
Perfect. And someone had asked about eWeek. Do you want to explain the difference between Week ENOT and eWeek?
Sure. So Wiki Not happens at the beginning of the year. eWeek actually happens at the third week of January. It's this huge competition between all the different engineering faculties and the department, which you'll have, like geological engineering has a team, civil has a team, mining, the engineering fraternity and sorority have a team, and the first years have a team, and that's all you guys, all 1,000 of you. So theoretically, you guys can win very easily because there's just so many of you. No other department can compete. The thing is, you all have to actually come out to events and have fun. And if you do that, because there are attendance points, so you guys could win just by showing up. The first years, and first years get called PPs, like 2 of the letter P, just if I like switch in and out of that terminology. It's a long story, but it's because that's the middle letter of the alphabet. If you want to hear the whole story, you can come out to our History of the EUS event in the first week. It's pretty fun. You get these patches for competing. So this is my patch for when I competed in first year and then second year. I think the camera is mirrored, but you get the idea of little patches.
No, yeah,
and it's super fun.
Properly, so
yeah,
it's all good.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so there are trivia events. There's a bunch of different competitions. There was a Smash Bros tournament last year. There's like foosball, Pong, just like all kinds of stuff, like theory-legged races, trivia night. This year obviously is going to be a little bit different, but I'm doing everything I can to try and get as many of the fun events in as possible. We're going to try and do things as online as we can, but the biggest issue is that we don't really know what things are going to look like in January, but it will happen, and I'd highly, highly, highly recommend participating. It's a super good time, and you meet like all the most involved and fun people generally turn out to E-Week events because they want to have fun. So that's how you meet fun people. So be fun. Come to events.
Awesome. And so kind of going off of your patches that you showed a couple of them, do you want to talk a little bit more about what patches are and the reds that you put your patches onto?
Sure. Okay, so I'm actually wearing, here, I'll take this off for a second. So at UBC, there was a point where every faculty had their own colored jacket. Everyone else stopped doing it because they're lame, but engineering still does it. So you can see this is the engineer's UBC jacket. Unfortunately, I'm lame and I kind of suck at sewing. So I have like a bunch of patches and yet 3 are sewed on. So I can, if you want, I can show you guys the ones that are on. So this patch is Cheers to the Cheese. So we have a building called the ESC, and that's where like the Engineering Student Society is. That's where people will go there. They'll do homework. There's a first year club room there. There's like, if you're ever like just looking for a place to hang out with other engineers, that's the building to go to on campus when campus is back alive. Though they replaced the old building a while ago, so they made these patches when that happened. I also have my Wiki Not patch, which you guys will get. We're hoping to try and mail them out to you. Worst case scenario, they'll be available at some point whenever everyone's back in person, but we want to get them out because that'd be fun. I have a patch here. This is from the engineering fraternity. I also have a few other things. There's this patch, which you can either get a knight or you can get Lady Godiva. It's a long story, but for those of you who know the story of Lady Godiva, she rode a horse through a town in England naked to protest taxes. Long story, but she's kind of our unofficial engineering mascot. Our band, we have an engineering band. It's called the Godiva Band. And there's patches. I got the knight one. And what you do is you sew this on kind of like a pocket. I can't really sew, so theoretically it's like here. And there's all kinds of other ones. There's a patch for volunteering in our eatery. So in engineering, we have our own little, it's like a bakery slash coffee place slash all these other things. There's all kinds of snacks. Everything's at cost, which is awesome because it's the cheapest place on campus to eat. So that's cool. If you volunteer there, you get a patch and you also get free food, which is great. I've got another, this is the Wiki Not patch for this year. And a common engineering tradition is whenever you're on a vacation somewhere, you pick up a patch. Like I went to Niagara Falls a while ago with my family, so I got a little Niagara Falls patch. And if you go to any other university, you should get patches just to show that you visited. So this is from USC, and none of this is sewn because I'm useless, but theoretically. But patches are super fun, and I'd really recommend getting a red once they're available. We're working on making them so you can order online. And when they are available, they'll be on the EUS website. And there's also volunteer patches. So if you volunteer, you can get patches. This is for manager positions, which this was for being the EUS historian last year, and this was for running our annual caroling. Caroling, probably not going to happen the way it usually does because we cannot meet up. But we're hoping to do like a summer caroling where we all put on like Hawaiian shirts, and that would be really fun. But we're figuring it out. And then these are little X's. This is just for being a volunteer. So these are super easy to get. And I'd really recommend volunteering. It's a really good way to meet the people who are most involved and help out with events, which is fun because you can kind of give back for the events being held. Yeah, I think that's about it on patches. I'd really recommend getting a red, and it's a really fun way to identify yourself as part of like the engineering cult over at UBC.
Excellent. Yes, you see lots of events where our engineering students are all wearing their reds. And it's really awesome to see. I think really engineering has one of the best student communities on campus. So, and it's really easily identifiable. I can't even talk anymore.
Identifiable.
It's really easy to identify those students because they're all wearing their reds. Perfect. So
do we want to answer questions in the chat now or at the end of the session?
Yeah, sure. I saw, Liam's question just popped up if you want to answer that one. Sure. So Liam asked, how would you become a volunteer for the events that you mentioned? So
there's a lot of different kinds of volunteer for the EUS. The events that I'm talking about, I'll just put my email in the chat. There. If you want, you can email me. I can get you in touch with, I can send you a list of all the different volunteer positions. There's all kinds of things. If you're interested in anything, just email me. There's like historian type things. There's like party planning. Unfortunately, we're kind of low on the parties right now, but we're figuring that out. I will find something for you to do. There's also painting the cairn. We have this, I don't know if I have, here, this pin kind of is shot in cairn shape. We have this big concrete thing at UBC that looks like this, except it's like red and white. And it's the cairn. It's awesome. It is constantly painted over by vandals from other faculties and other things. We paint it back, our glorious engineering red and white. So I'm in charge of that too. If you want to get involved, if you live near campus, that's a very easy way to be involved. There's also a patch for that. I don't have it on me right now, but it's just shaped like the cairn. It's very cool. So yeah, just email me if you want any kind of volunteer position. There are so many. There's social media stuff. There's like administrative stuff, painting things, building things, planning parties, all that stuff. So yeah, feel free to contact me. I'll get you in touch with the person who would be in charge of whatever you want to volunteer for.
And usually there will be, eventually there will probably be a sign up for volunteers on the EUS website as well, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. And Renee asked a question about if there's going to be any professors at our session today. So no, it'll just be Christian and myself answering questions about kind of making connections in first year. But Renee, if you are interested in hearing from some of our profs, we did have a session a few weeks ago that one of our profs was a part of, if you want to look at that recording. So just, for anyone else that do have any questions that come up about anything that we talk about today, feel free to add those to the chat and we will answer them. The next question that I have for Christian is if you can let me know, I know that you and I talked before, and that aside from Week ENOT, that there are some other kind of virtual events that EUS is working on. Do you want to talk a little bit more about anything else that you have in the works or are planning on?
Sure. Yeah. So one thing we're planning on is this is a bit of a collaboration with the first year Discord group, which if any of you don't know, I'll grab the link and I'll leave it in the chat. I'd highly recommend joining. I think they have like 500 people or something, which is about half of all the first years. It's like their own little community. It's not officially run by the EUS or anything like that, but we do encourage you join. It's cool. It's a really good way to meet half of all of the first years that are around. I'll get a link to it later because I have to dig that up.
Jade just added the link, so that's perfect.
Perfect. Thank you, Jade. So yeah, the link in the chat right there. Click that and join. It is good. We'll be organizing events through there. We're hoping to do some Jackbox nights. If you guys have played Jackbox, it's like a collaborative game where there's a screen and then you play on your phone. Things like Scribble.io, maybe Cards Against Humanity, just a bunch of all those general fun player games. We're looking into stuff like an EUS Minecraft server. That's a bit more intensive and not easy. But it's whatever you guys are interested in, that's kind of the goal. There's this thing called First Year Council. We're going to be coordinating with them very heavily. And hopefully, the best way to plan events that you guys want to go to is to talk to you guys. So we have a lot of ideas, but we're holding out on the council to talk to. So that way we make sure that they're the things you really want.
Perfect. I know that in some of our online sessions in the past, we have mentioned the First Year Council and a little bit about that. Do you want to talk a little bit more about what exactly the First Year Council is and how students can actually go about getting involved?
Sure, yeah. So First Year Council, it's every year, the first years elect their council. There's like a president, vice president, treasurer. It goes on. There's, I think, 13 positions on the First Year Council. There's like a social coordinator. All of like, if you think of like a high school student council, it's that, except you actually have the power to do things, which is really cool. There's some oversight, but you're really just like given the general idea of what to do and the people to contact if you need help, and you just plan events. Unfortunately, usually there's like a lot of big parties the First Year Council is planning. What we're doing instead is hopefully this is pending the First Year Council people existing. So run for First Year Council, by the way. The way you do that is we don't have the link up yet because we can't, like, there's a lot of complicated elections policy that we have to adhere to, but in a week or two into classes, the election nominations will open, and there will be a form on the EUS website, as well as we'll nominate you on Canvas. If you've noticed on Canvas, there should be, once you're on Canvas, there will be a tab that's an EUS tab that's along with all your classes. And under that tab, there will be things like updates on events and how to do First Year Council, because we're still working on the exact way it works, because usually there's a nomination form, but you can't really get signatures if you can't come into contact with people, which is unfortunate. But the gist of it is you'll need 10 people endorsing your run. Other first years, just message your friends. And then you would run like a campaign over 2 weeks. Just like talk about it in first year groups. Promote yourself, talk about what you would do. There might actually be debates. We're still working on how to moderate those over Zoom. And once you're elected, you go into your position, like the social coordinator would plan events. The president would represent you on the council that has all of the departments on it. And you get to make really important decisions with that. You'd be in charge of things like your team, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, and there's also a video that Erin linked in the chat. That's just about how First Year Council works. I'd recommend watching that if you're interested, and I'd really recommend being interested. One of my biggest regrets is I didn't know First Year Council existed until after the election, so I didn't get to run for any of the positions. I did volunteer for them, though. I'd recommend volunteering for the First Year Council. It's great, and you meet like the first years that are super interested and super involved, and those are like good first years. Be those first years. They are good.
Yeah, and especially if you want to get involved in student government later on, the First Year Council is a great way to kind of get introduced to that. And the EUS executive kind of help guide the First Year Council as well. So it's not like you're just totally on your own, but there's an academic rep I believe, for the first year council, and then there's also the academic or the VP academic with the EUS. So they often work together a lot. So that's just one example where you're not just like on your own leading something. You're actually being guided by the EUS, which is really awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Each position on the first year council has like an equivalent that will be working with you, and you'll be able to go to them if you have any problems. Like I would be working with the social coordinator, like our VP finance would work with the treasurer, and so on and so forth. So there's always someone to support you who knows what's going on a bit better.
Perfect. There's a couple questions that came in. So
Okay.
I don't know what your name is, but you're just going by P today, so perfect. About the reds, so the jackets and
Yeah.
cardigans. Christian had mentioned that they're going to try and make them available online, and once they are, they'll be posted to the EUS website. And Renee
Yeah.
just asked, how do you apply for being a part of first year council? I'm just going to leave it as we'll send out more information from the EUS once
Yeah.
that is all started. They're just figuring out some kind of logistics pieces for that.
Yeah, but you'll know for sure. We'll send it out. Every place you can think of that first years are, there will be information on it. I would highly recommend either running or at least looking into it.
Perfect. So that's one really great way for first year students to get involved. And I know our first year students have already created a lot of group chat. So I know that there's a bunch of WhatsApp chats based on your STT that you're in that you've created. I know that the first years created an Instagram page, which is awesome to get to know each other. There's the Discord group that was already mentioned. So a lot of these I do want to just mention are groups created by students for students. So they're not monitored by UBC Engineering. They're not monitored by EUS or anything like that. And they're just created by you for each other. So that's really awesome to see. So one thing I do want to quickly mention is, because there are a lot of these groups out there that are being created by other students and that you're joining, is just to be a little bit cautious, and practice that online safety. I'm sure you've heard about it your whole life of, like, don't give away your personal information online. So we do want to mention that there is a little bit of a fine line. We do encourage you to make friends and meet new people, but things like your student ID, that is private information that you shouldn't be sharing on public channels. And just being aware of kind of who. I know that there was a couple of issues earlier this summer that there were groups being created by people who weren't students. So if you're in a group that's created by someone and it seems sketchy, ask them what program they're in, ask them some questions about themselves, and if you do have concerns, you can always come to the faculty as well, and we can help you out with that. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of control of shutting down groups necessarily, but we do encourage you to use your judgment that we don't want there to be any sort of harassment or bullying, because that is something that as UBC students, you all sign off on, saying that you are going to be part of our respectful campus. So I don't want to bring things down, but I do want to mention that you still do need to be a little bit careful online, but the EUS is a great resource to reach out to if you're not sure of, like, is this group legit? Should I be a part of it? They can also help you with that as well. And then there are a couple of kind of official groups that are sanctioned by UBC Engineering. So we have the first year Facebook group that tends to kind of follow you throughout your whole degree. We post a lot of like events and things like that in there, so it's kind of a way to notify you of things. There's also the first year engagement Slack, and I believe that will stay operating even after you start classes, so that's a way to connect with other students. And then there's also the e-news, which is an email newsletter to look forward to in the future, and that will have lots of events and things like that to be aware of. So if you're ever not sure of how to get involved in these events that are happening and things like that, it'll all be shared through a variety of different sources for you. So I just wanted to kind of mention that. Christian, I know that, other than these groups that are created online already, there are some other options for students to kind of get involved with this year. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And this also answers one of the questions. Jessica was asking how to apply for a design team. So I can pull this up here. One of the ways to get involved is to join a design team. I'll drop the link here. So from this link, there are different categories. There's aerospace teams, computer teams, robotics teams. You click the kind of team you want to go into, and it's got a list. And then you click that team, and it'll take you to their website where you can contact them if you want to get involved. Design teams, keep in mind they are a time commitment. So like it's the kind of thing you need to weigh your like, do I have the extra time for this? It's usually like maybe 4 hours on a Saturday. That's the usual way it goes. Like you're spending your Saturday afternoon there. With the COVID stuff, every single team is doing things differently. So what I would do is find the teams you're interested in, email them, and make sure you ask them like, what is the time commitment? What are the hours? Because everything's kind of up in the air right now. Um, all of those teams, they love first years because like more than being qualified, they want someone who will stick around from first year to fourth year and be dedicated every year. So just keep that in mind that you don't have to be like super proficient with like soldering or like have a workbench at home. All you have to do is just show up and be willing to work for them, and they'll love you. Another cool thing is, here, I'll also leave the link to it before I start talking about it, is the EUS has a bunch of ex officio clubs. So I will find them here. So these clubs, they cover a super wide range of different topics. Everything from, there's engineering fraternity and sorority, which I think I mentioned earlier. I joined the fraternity. I had a really good time. It's not for everybody, but if you think it's for you, it's probably for you, I guess. There's also, there's Gears and Queries, which is like the LGBT group in engineering. I'd recommend joining. Like, if any of these groups sound like something that you're into, then you should join them. Like 100%. They all love new members, especially first years. Like every club, every design team they're all over new first year members because like you're the future of their club. They want you to be there for 4 years and take all the positions and all that stuff. Yeah, there's a bunch of, I won't list all of them, but I definitely check out that link. Look at the ones you're interested in, and each of them has an email listed. Check them out. Send them a message. There's things like the Institute for Electrical and Electronics Engineers. That's a good place if you want to get into something like CPEN or electrical. Maybe shoot them an email. Be like, hey, like I'm interested in your department. How do I survive? Because that's a good thing. Like talking to, if there is a program you want to get into, like geological or civil or any of them, I would recommend going to their student society, which you can just look up like UBC Civil Engineering Society, and just send them a message. Be like, hi, like I'm a first year, I'm interested in this. Like, do you have any advice? Because they're all different, and everyone loves first years. Like every department, all over you. If you're a first year and you're interested in them, it's great. And I guess to answer Robert's question, so joining each club is different. Joining the fraternity and sorority, it works like other fraternities and sororities. I won't get into the whole pledging thing because that's a whole talk about like stuff that I don't want to like focus this on that. That's not really fair to the other clubs. But what I would do is send them a message. Most clubs are just, hi, I'd like to join, and they go, awesome, congrats, you have joined. So every club on this list except for the fraternity and sorority work like that. And you can message the fraternity and sorority if you want to know more details about that stuff. But I would recommend checking out anything that even like vaguely interests you, because one really important thing about engineering is to build support structures. And I don't want to be like, oh, engineering's super hard, it's terrible, whatever. But there will be times where you're faced with some academic hardship, and having this support structure of like all these people, like people that you barely know, but they're in third year or they're in fourth year, and everyone's been through first year, and everyone really wants you to get through first year. And having that support structure, it's awesome. It's the best. Like there are people, you'll just have people who you don't really know, but they know that you're in first year. Just message you like, hey, you're in first year, midterms are happening, what's up, how are you doing? And it's an awesome feeling. And the only way to get that to happen is to join these kind of design teams and clubs where you have upper years intermingling with lower years. And I can't recommend enough, like, to join a design team, join an EXO club, like balance it with your time commitment. But you'd almost get more out of it in like help and support and mental health than you put in time-wise, in my opinion, at least.
Definitely. And I think that's, a great recommendation. And I think kind of one of the main things that we've shared a few times already today is that there are so many opportunities available to you. We will try to notify you about them as best as we can, but make sure that you're taking advantage of them, reaching out to people and connecting with them so that you are able to get involved in these. One thing I do know that's happening as part of Imagine Day, there was something called the main event, and that will actually have a virtual clubs fair this year. So you'll be able to connect with clubs. So within the ex officio clubs, I think we have 9 clubs, is it, I want to say. We have, I think, 32 design teams. The numbers constantly change, so I'm never quite sure what the right answer is for those. And I know with UBC as a whole, we have over 350 clubs that are campus-wide. So even if getting involved in engineering is not something that speaks to you necessarily, and there's a different club outside of engineering that speaks to you, get involved and make connections with students across campus. And the virtual clubs fair will be a great way to do so. You'll be able to show that you're interested, you'll be able to get their contact information, find out what clubs there are and everything like that. So I think there's another question from Georgia. Before I get to that, I do want to mention we just have a few minutes left. So if you do have any other questions for Christian or for myself, feel free to ask those, and we'll be able to answer them. For Georgia's question is about textbooks. So I know a few students have been asking this. It's a little bit off topic, but I'll answer it just because I know many of you might have the same question. So will all textbooks be online, or is there a need to go and purchase hard copies? So for the most part, for your first year courses, not every course will require a textbook, but your instructors will let you know what is required. In some cases, what is recommended. So maybe you don't need the textbook, but it's a good idea to have it. In some cases, you can use older versions of the textbook. So there's a lot of different options. Most of the textbooks, especially those from first year, do have online versions that you can access as well. But really, we recommend just waiting to hear from your instructor about what is required for that course, and they'll let you know. I know that the bookstore will be doing shipping of textbooks if you need the hard copies. The online versions usually are, you can purchase through the publisher of the textbook. Christian, is there anything that you want to add regarding that piece?
Yeah, it's the biggest thing is that each professor has their own thing going on. If what the professor is saying to you feels really unreasonable, let's say that you can't get the book shipped to your country for some reason, and the professor just refuses to make any kind of exception, send me an email, send someone at the EUS an email. We do a lot of academic advocacy, and that's exactly the kind of thing that we love to help set a standard for. Most of the profs are really nice people. They're not going to be just arbitrarily mean to you for no reason. But if for whatever reason, maybe some profs grumpy that day or something and says something that you feel is really unfortunate to whatever situation you're in with textbooks, just message me, message any of us. On the EUS website, you can find the VP academic. His name is Jacob. He's great. Or you can message me and I can get you in touch with him. Either way, don't feel like you're alone. Our job is to advocate for you guys. And as much as we love throwing parties, like arguably more important than parties is like doing advocacy so you guys could pass, because that is also good.
Yeah, perfect. So I know that our profs, are really aware of that this year, especially that not everyone can just go to the bookstore and get textbooks as easily. So it is something that they're all thinking about and planning for. But yeah, if you have issues, EUS is a great place to go and get those questions answered. And for those of you that have been on we've had Jacob on a couple of sessions actually earlier this summer. So you might recognize Jacob if you do talk to him. Suhail asked, what I think is actually a great question, but how easy is it making and maintaining friendships with students outside the engineering faculty? Christian, do you have any friends outside of engineering?
Absolutely. I'd say it's almost not that they're outside of engineering. It's that and this is like a people skills thing, and maybe this is something like your dad would tell you, but like it has a lot more to do with how they feel about time commitment. Like if you have friends that are like that will understand that, hey, like sometimes, I mean, none of us can hang out anyway because we're in the middle of a pandemic, but like, let's pretend that we're not. Like, sometimes you just can't hang out because you've got that midterm tomorrow and you've got that homework due tonight. And some people understand that. And obviously engineers tend to understand it more because they also have that midterm tomorrow and that homework due tonight and also 5 more midterms. But like people from other faculties are capable of like empathy and stuff as much as we like to make fun of them. And it is very fun, trust me. But like, it has a lot more to do with their personality, in my opinion. Like some people just don't have a time commitment going on and can't really understand that. And I've had this happen. Like there are high school friends who had a lot less going on than I did and didn't quite get it when I couldn't hang out with them. And like it's not something to like end a friendship over, but it is something to understand that you will have a greater time commitment than other people. And some people will understand it, and sometimes you just have to explain that. Like some people will think that you're blowing them off or you're not, like you don't want to hang out with them, and just be clear, like, hey, like I really want to hang out with you, man, but I simply cannot. I have too much things. And other people from other faculties like that are too. Like if it's someone that you think you'd be friends with like in a normal way, don't let them not being in engineering stop that. Just keep in mind that like if they don't understand time commitment, it'll be a bit harder. But like just make them understand. Be like, hey, like I'm really sorry, I can't hang out and this is why, instead of just like disappearing on them, I guess.
Yeah, so engineering students, take more courses than any other faculty, really. So we know that is something that happens. But if you have mutual interests, so if you meet friends through other clubs on campus and things like that, it's definitely possible. And I think it's really great to have friends from different backgrounds. So one of the things we always talk about in engineering is having different perspectives on a team is only going to make that team stronger. So if you just think about, moving through life, if you have different perspectives in your life, then that's only going to make you that much stronger in thinking about different things, right? So
yeah.
Samson has a question. When is the virtual club fair and how do we sign up for it? So as long as you attend Imagine Day, you will automatically be signed up for it. So don't worry about that. Just attend Imagine Day, which will be on September 8th. Renee asked, how can we join the computer design team when we don't have any experience because you're a first-year student? So Renee, we really addressed this topic in detail in our co-op live session, and that one is recorded and on the first-year Facebook group. So if you wanted to check that out, I would highly recommend it. Basically, they don't necessarily expect you to have experience going on to a design team, but what they do expect is that you're passionate about the projects that they work on, and they're happy to teach you about what they're working on so that you can be a really active member in that group, but you're not required to have specific experience going into it. They'll help guide you through all of those pieces. As long as you're passionate about what they're working on is really what we're looking for. And Sean, just in addition to that, the recording of this session will be posted in the first year Facebook group. So you've probably received many emails from me throughout the summer. They all have a link to the first year Facebook group. If you search official first year engineering 2020, 2021, I think is the full name of the Facebook group. If you search that, you'll find that group and you can join it, and you can see all of our previous videos there as well. All right, we're running out of time. So there's one more question from Jessica that I'll ask this, which kind of aligns with, I always like to ask at the end of our session, what is a piece of advice that you would give our incoming students? So Jessica asks if you have any studying tips for keeping up with classes while also having a social life. So maybe you can kind of address that with your advice to our incoming students.
Okay, so I'd say I almost have less of a studying tip and more of a social life tip. Studying, in my opinion, is like you find out the way that studying works for you, and it's important to figure it out. Sorry, I was laughing at the chat thing. Because everyone studies a little bit differently. But in my opinion, the most important thing is to really schedule out and regiment your studying, and also your homework. Something that, like, homework is often not worth that much as one thing, but you also have to realize that it's free marks. Like, for math homework, if your math homework works like mine did, which it should, you have unlimited attempts at some of the questions. And sometimes it's really easy to say, oh, this question is one question on a whole homework assignment that's worth 1% of my whole mark, so I'm not going to do it. But the thing is, that question is also what's on your midterm and your final. And it's also free marks, because like your midterm, you have to earn those marks. Your homework, you just keep going on it. And I say this as someone who, in my first year, I had some academic struggles. I actually failed my first math midterm, and I didn't just fail it, like I really failed it. And it led to a lot of readjusting. One thing that's important to realize is a lot of people going into engineering, and I don't want to generalize, but it's broadly true. There's a lot of people have never really failed before in an academic setting. Like, you kind of breezed through high school a bit, you took some honor courses, and like you studied, but you never really like, oh, I just failed that test. Like, that's a very foreign concept. Failing is not the end. I ended up passing that class. It was a lot of work, and it required a lot of going to office hours and stuff, but it's all possible. Keeping up with classes while having a social life. One thing that's convenient is if you're friends with a lot of engineers, and if your social circle is very engineering-y, like, especially like you have an STT, which is a bunch of people that are taking all the exact same courses as you. For me, my social circle revolved a lot around that STT. So we'd all, like, our social circle, like, we wouldn't hang out when we all had a midterm because we all had the midterm because we were all in the same STT. And a lot of and that was really cool too, because it was people that I don't think I would have been friends with in like a normal scenario. So that's a really easy way. Like we were talking about perspectives earlier. You'll find all kinds of perspectives in your STT because it's all these different people that just happen to like pick the number. Like I was in STT 23, right? So people just picked the number 23, and we all ended up together. And it was a really cool way that people who otherwise probably would never have been friends all ended up being really good friends. And beyond that, just it's important to get what you have to get done, get your studying done, get your homework done, and then like your social life goes in the rest of the time, and you will have that time. There's no point where you'll have actually no time at all. There are times like midterms where maybe you hang out with your friends next week instead of this week, but you shouldn't be in this situation where you have zero free time like for the whole year. And if you do, talk to me, talk to somebody. We can help work on your life. The biggest thing is time management, in my opinion. Like, a lot of people, myself included, you'll have all this time, and you somehow, like, whatever homework you're doing takes exactly as long as the time you have. So I'd recommend that. I guess to answer J2, just it also sounds like a time management question. I'd say yes. A design team and being part of any XO club, I wouldn't say that's way too much time because you're getting a ton of time out of it. Most of the people I know in both the engineering fraternity and sorority are actually in design teams, and a lot of the people I know in ex official clubs, all the ex official clubs are too. BOC people in engineering have all kinds of things on their plate because if you're not involved in the community, it's very easy to feel very alone, and you don't have the support structure. Like the amount of times I've gone to someone in my fraternity in one of the clubs in the EUS, just someone that I randomly knew because of we met at an event somewhere random that was engineering. Like those people are your lifeline. Those people, like the support structure you build there is more valuable than the time you would have saved not going to it, in my opinion. So I'd say that was a total ramble of an answer. Sorry if it was kind of confusing, but I'd say the biggest thing is like build support structures with people. Social events with engineers is where you build those structures, and that will come back around and help you with keeping up with classes, especially
Yeah.
upper years. They're awesome.
Excellent. Yeah, no, I think that's a great takeaway is get connected with your classmates, get connected with the upper year students, and that will help support you. And I think if you are ever in a situation where you feel like you're in too many classes, you're in too many extracurriculars or things like that, come and talk to someone on the EUS, go and talk to engineering student services. There's so many supports available to help you figure that out. And we don't ever want you to feel like you are floundering, that you're not able to manage your time. So there's a ton of resources available throughout UBC for time management and things like that, and there's people to reach out to. So I think the biggest difference from high school is really just you need to be a little bit aware of what you're up to yourself and reach out to those resources when you need them. They won't all necessarily be handed out to you. We'll make sure that we share that information as broadly as we can, but you need to kind of take advantage of it. So I think that's a great piece of advice. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you so much, Christian, for being a part of our last session of the summer that I'm hosting of our live sessions for students. I know that there are going to be a few more AMA sessions coming up that are hosted through the first year engagement Slack channel. So if you're not part of the first year engagement group already, you can send me an email for sure, and we'll make sure that you're part of that group. Most of our first year students are already in that, but if you're not for some reason, definitely let me know and we will get you added to that group. But thank you all so much for joining us. Continue to use the first year Facebook group to ask questions. Continue to use the first year engagement program in Slack to ask questions. Those are also great ways to connect with current students. And you'll find out about all of those sorts of events coming up through there, as well as the e-news emails that you'll start to get near the beginning of classes. So thank you everyone for joining us. Have a great evening. Again, Christian, thank you so much for being a part of our session.